I never thought I'd be sitting by the kitchen. That's where I watched my son get married, through a swinging door, obscured by a towering tray of shrimp cocktail. I paid for that wedding. Every delicate flower, every ornate chair, every single detail was meticulously funded by me. Yet, when the music swelled and the heartfelt toast began, I wasn't a part of it, not even a distant, forgotten corner. I just smiled, a brittle, strained smile that felt like it would shatter my face, and I stayed quiet, a silence that screamed louder than any protest. And after the last bitter bite of cake, a cake I didn't even taste, I burned it all to the ground with one phone call. Subscribe if this story resonates with you, and tell me, where in the world are you watching from? There was no sign, no elegant card with my name, no warm greeting to acknowledge my presence. Just a flimsy folding chair, its metal frame cold against my delicate dress, with a paper napkin carelessly tossed over the seat. That was my place, my designated spot of shame, nestled between a stack of greasy used trays and a wheeled cart with a perpetually broken wheel that shrieked in protest every time someone pushed it past my lonely outpost. I stood there for a few agonizing seconds, blinking hard, trying to push back the burning tears that threatened to blur my vision. The heavy, cloying scent of marinara sauce hung in the air, thick and sour, clinging to the steam that billowed from the relentless kitchen doors. I could feel the oppressive heat from the ovens against my back, a tangible reminder of the invisible barrier between me and the celebration. And something deep inside me twisted, a knot of pain and profound sorrow. I looked down at my dress, a soft mauve chiffon, hand-stitched with care and hope, now feeling utterly foolish and out of place. I had spent 3 grueling hours that morning getting my hair done, meticulously styled, each curl a testament to a hope I now knew was tragically naive. 3 hours pretending this day, this monumental day, would be as special for me as it was for them. But no one had told me. No one had the decency to say, "We've made other seating arrangements for you, Margaret." No one even looked at me when I arrived, not even Daniel, my son. He was too busy smiling wide, a dazzling, oblivious grin, adjusting his cufflinks, letting her mother, Emily's mother, kiss him on the cheek as if she were the one who had raised him, as if she was the one who had stayed up every single night when he suffered from night terrors, rocking him gently until he finally found sleep, as if she was the one who worked double shifts, pushing her exhausted body to its limits, just so he could have braces, just so he could have that perfect, confident smile. Because I couldn't afford both rent and his smile, and I chose his happiness over my own comfort, always. I clutched my little handbag, a beige leather purse, the one he bought me years ago for Mother's Day, back when he still called me Mama, a tender term that now felt like a distant echo. My hands were shaking uncontrollably, a tremor that ran deep into my wrists. A subtle, painful vibration, like something electrical, trying desperately to escape through my fingertips. The catering manager, a boy who couldn't have been more than 18, shifted awkwardly, his young face etched with a fleeting, guilty smile. They said you were supposed to wait back here, ma'am. The bride didn't want, any visual clashes with the theme." I stared at him, my mind reeling. Theme? The word felt like a cruel joke. He winced, glancing nervously at the swinging doors, which continued to hit the wall with a sharp, jarring bang, a constant, irritating rhythm. Laughter, boisterous and carefree, spilled in from the reception hall, followed by a burst of triumphant music, cutting through the kitchen din. "Like aesthetic consistency with the photos and all," he added, his voice barely audible over the joyous noise. I sat down slowly, each movement a conscious effort, my heart feeling like a heavy stone. The folding chair groaned under my weight, a protest that mirrored my own. There was a dark, greasy stain on the floor directly under my feet, gravy maybe. My shoes stuck slightly when I tried to shift them, a minor indignity in a day filled with major ones. I looked down at my nails, freshly done in a soft, hopeful pink, a futile attempt at elegance. Then I looked at the cold, unappetizing chicken breast someone had dropped in front of me on a chipped white plate, an insult in itself. The worst part, the most soul-crushing part, was that I didn't say anything, not one single word. Because it was his day, because I told myself, a mantra of self-sacrifice, don't ruin this for him, don't be that mother. Because I had paid for every single thing, every dream, and still, foolishly, believed that meant something. I pulled out the program I'd been handed at the church, a beautifully printed piece of cream cardstock with elegant cursive. There was no mention of me anywhere. Her father walked her down the aisle. Her mother, Susan, gave the very first, very important speech. I was just the purse string, the invisible hand, the ghost in the kitchen, the woman no one wanted in the picture. The door swung open again, briefly. I caught a fleeting glimpse of the glittering chandelier, the lively band striking up, the beginning of the first dance. Daniel and Emily, my son and his bride, twirling effortlessly under soft golden light. He didn't look my way once, not a single glance towards the door that hid me. I pressed my napkin to my mouth, pretending to dab a non-existent stain, anything to hide the quiver in my lips. My eyes burned, a searing pain. I told myself it was the onions from the kitchen, the steam, the oppressive heat, anything but the crushing weight of betrayal. But it was. God, it was. And somewhere deep inside me, something cracked quietly, irrevocably, like a hairline fracture in glass that you don't even notice until the whole pane shatters into 1,000 pieces. I stared at the peeling wall in front of me, at a patch of faded paint behind a dusty fire extinguisher. I stared at it so hard I thought I'd burn a hole through it, willing my pain into that small, unremarkable spot. That patch became my anchor, my solitary focal point, the only thing keeping me from utterly falling apart in front of a busy waiter carrying crab puffs. Because if I had let it out, if I had started crying then, I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that I didn't know if I'd ever stop. I took a deep, shuddering breath, then another, trying to steady the earthquake within me. The chicken on my plate had long gone cold, congealed and unappetizing. I didn't touch it. Eventually, someone brought out dessert. I didn't taste it, just stared blankly at the layers of white and gold, her colors, her perfect little vision of a fairy tale ending. And then, with a quiet resolve, I made the call. It was short, direct. I didn't need to explain myself, to plead, or to justify. Just 3 simple cancellations, delivered with a chilling calm. The flowers for tomorrow's brunch, the second half of the band's exorbitant payment, and the open bar that was supposed to flow freely until midnight. My voice was steady, calm, controlled, a stark contrast to the storm raging inside me. And when I hung up, I didn't feel guilt. I didn't feel regret. I felt the first flicker of something I hadn't known in years, a dormant ember igniting. Power. I looked down at my hands again. They were no longer shaking. My heart was no longer racing, just a quiet, steady hum, like an engine slowly coming back to life after years of dormancy. The door swung open again, another fleeting flash of light, of laughter, of the vibrant life I was so pointedly excluded from. Let them toast without me. I had my own plans now, a quiet, devastating plan that was just beginning to unfold. I didn't sleep that night, not for a single second. I lay in that stiff, unfamiliar hotel bed, still in my elaborate dress, staring blankly at the ceiling fan spinning above me like a dizzying, menacing blade that might suddenly unscrew and crash onto my chest. I half hoped it would, a desperate, dark thought. I could still smell the lingering kitchen grease in my hair, a pungent reminder of my humiliation. The cloying perfume of expensive roses, meant for celebration, mingled sickeningly with the sour scent of my own sweat. Humiliation clung to my skin like a second, unwanted layer, suffocating me. At some point, In the oppressive darkness of the room, I kicked off my shoes. My feet were swollen and throbbing, aching fiercely. They had hurt throughout the entire reception, but I hadn't dared take them off. I needed to look presentable, even in the ignominious confines of the kitchen. It was around 3 a.m. when I finally sat up, my body heavy with exhaustion, my mind buzzing with a painful clarity. The digital clock on the nightstand glowed a stark, unforgiving red. My phone buzzed again on the nightstand, a persistent, demanding vibration. I didn't check it. I already knew what awaited me there. Dozens of missed calls from Daniel, from Emily, a frantic message from my niece that simply read, "What happened? Everyone's freaking out." I opened the wedding budget spreadsheet on my tablet, a meticulously kept document I had maintained for over a year, each entry a memory of my generosity. I knew every cent, every minor adjustment, every extravagant upgrade, every indulgent whim Emily had asked for, always with that tight, unsettling smile. And that word she used, a word that felt like a knife wrapped in satin, elevated. "Margaret, we just want something a little more elevated," she would coo. That's how I ended up agreeing to hand-calligraphed invitations from some ridiculously expensive boutique Etsy vendor in Vermont. That's how the venue changed from the humble community church hall, where I had envisioned a simple, heartfelt ceremony, to a meticulously restored barn, complete with glittering chandeliers and rustic antique whiskey barrels, all to satisfy her vision. That's how the open bar, originally modest, expanded to include a custom cocktail menu, and the simple 2-tiered cake swelled to an opulent 5 tiers. I paid for it all. Not a single person offered to split the cost. Not Daniel, not her wealthy-seeming parents. And I never asked, because I wanted him to have everything I couldn't afford when I was raising him alone, to have the perfect dream wedding I never had. I scrolled through the endless transactions, each one a fresh stab of pain. My breath caught in my throat when I saw them. 2 unauthorized charges made just days before the wedding. A bar tab from a tasting event. A dress rehearsal dinner upgrade. The same restaurant where they had sat me in the back, near the kitchen. Again, a cruel echo of the main event. My stomach clenched, a cold, hard knot. I double-checked the card details, a futile gesture. My card, used without my permission. And then I saw the note she had left on Venmo to one of her bridesmaids. "His mom is covering everything. Might as well go big." Wedding vibes. I didn't cry, not this time. My tear ducts felt dry, depleted. I felt nothing, a strange, heavy nothingness that comes after too much pain, after too many blows. It felt like my insides had gone numb, like my nerve endings had curled inward, shriveling to protect themselves from further agony. I reached over and turned on the lamp, its sudden brightness stinging my weary eyes. They had filled my pillow after his father left, a silent lament, and again when he walked across that high school stage, not once turning to wave at me in the surging crowd, already moving on. I had run out of tears years ago, my well of sorrow utterly dry. What I had now was something else entirely, not grief, not heartbreak, but a devastating, liberating clarity. I walked to the kitchen and poured myself a cup of coffee, black, strong, bitter, like the truth. I sat by the window and watched the neighbor's sprinkler tick, tick, tick across the lawn, a monotonous, comforting sound in the normalcy of a Sunday morning. But I was no longer the woman who paid for someone else's fairy tale and received a folding chair behind the punch bowl in return. I was no longer the woman who would swallow this, not ever again. I opened my phone and began, with the florist. My voice was calm, polite. I thanked them for their understanding. I confirmed again that Sunday's arrangements would not be needed. I didn't explain. I didn't owe them that. The band was next. Same tone, same resolute silence about the reason. Then the bar service. "Hi, this is Margaret Langley. Yes, that's right. I'm calling to cancel the cocktail reception for the post-wedding brunch. Yes, no issues, just a change of heart. Thank you. Click. 3 calls, 3 decisive cuts. I could have left it there, but I didn't, because I knew what was coming. I turned off my phone, let it sit in silent defiance for 5 minutes, then turned it back on. 38 unread messages, 3 desperate voicemails. Daniel again. Mom, where are you? The band didn't show. What the hell is going on? Emily's mother. I don't know what's happening, but this is incredibly unprofessional. People are asking questions. Then Emily herself, her entitlement dripping from the text. Margaret, seriously, is this because you were upset about the seating? That's just petty. We had a vision. Don't ruin this. Petty? The word echoed in my mind like a slur, like a branding iron searing my skin. And yet, when I closed my eyes, all I could see was her smirking across the reception hall, knowing exactly where I was, knowing what she had done, knowing I wouldn't fight back. Until now. I turned off the phone again, let them spiral into chaos, let the questions pile up, unanswered, let them realize the bar ran dry because I was the well that supplied it, that the music stopped because I paid the final note, that the flowers never arrived because the roots of their gratitude were rotten. I cleaned the kitchen, wiped the counters, fed the cat, finding a strange, quiet satisfaction in the mundane. It was the most peace I'd felt in months. Around noon, the doorbell rang, a persistent, demanding sound. I didn't answer. Let them knock, let them sit in the uncomfortable heat of their own discomfort. Later that night, with a calm, deliberate hand, I posted a single photo on Facebook. Not of the wedding, not of me. Just a stark, undeniable picture of the check I wrote. I blurred out the account number, leaving only my signature visible, a powerful, undeniable mark. No caption, no explanation, just that. A truth they couldn't deny, a receipt of sacrifice. And then I logged off. Not just from Facebook, but from the crushing weight of guilt, from the suffocating silence, from pretending this wasn't a profound betrayal. I didn't need their explanations, their spin, their desperate justifications. Let them sit in the wreckage of their choices. I wasn't going to save them from it. The sudden, unnatural silence was the first sign they were truly scrambling, truly in crisis. No more messages, no more desperate calls. Just a strange, stretching quiet, like the eerie calm in the eye of a storm passing directly over my house. I could feel it, the palpable tension, the anxious waiting. They didn't know what I would do next. I didn't either, not fully, but it was going to be entirely mine. Monday morning, I brewed coffee, the comforting aroma filling my home, and sat by the window again. No makeup, no earrings, no pretense. Just me and the quiet dignity of the new day, and the soft hum of the fridge in the background. Daniel hadn't called since yesterday. The last voicemail had been short, stiff, defensive, a harsh accusation. You really made a scene, Mom. Everyone's talking. You embarrassed us. I don't know what you were trying to prove, but you crossed a line. I didn't even flinch when I heard it, because here's the truth. No one likes to say aloud, but it's a brutal reality. You can give everything to someone, your time, your money, your boundless love, and still be disposable. You can build their entire world, sacrificing your own, and still be told you're not part of the aesthetic. The betrayal didn't surprise me anymore. What surprised me, what truly astonished me, was how little I cared now that I'd stopped begging for their approval, stopped chasing a love that was never truly mine. That morning, with a profound sense of liberation, I deleted his contact from my phone. Just the name, Daniel. The number remained, a faded ghost of connection. I didn't need to forget him. I just didn't want his name lighting up my screen, as if it still belonged there, as if I still belonged to him. Around noon I went out, to the grocery store, the post office, small mundane errands. Life continued, undeniably. And in the bakery aisle of all places, a place brimming with sweetness, I saw Diane, my cousin, who'd flown in for the wedding. She smiled when she spotted me, but there was a flicker of hesitation behind it, a guilt she couldn't quite conceal. "Margaret." "Hey." I nodded, a small, controlled gesture. She stepped closer, lowering her voice, her eyes filled with a tentative concern. "Are you okay?" I met her eyes, a direct, unwavering gaze. "Were you okay?" I asked, my voice calm. Watching me sit back there, she flushed, a deep, uncomfortable crimson spreading across her cheeks. I didn't realize that was on purpose. I thought maybe you..." "No," I cut in gently, my voice firm but without anger. "You didn't think. That's all." There was a long, uncomfortable silence, punctuated only by the distant sounds of the bustling grocery store. "I'm sorry," she said finally, her voice barely a whisper. "It was wrong. I should have said something." I nodded once, a gesture of quiet acknowledgement. "Thank you." She looked relieved, as if that small moment of accountability had somehow freed her from a burden. It hadn't freed me, not entirely, but it was a start. When I got home, I found a bouquet on my porch. Carnations, the cheap kind, already wilting, their petals drooping in sad defeat. No card. I didn't bring them inside. Instead, I walked them straight to the trash bin, a symbolic gesture of discarding what was no longer worthy. Later that evening, I checked Facebook. The photo of the check had nearly 100 comments, a whirlwind of reactions. Old friends, colleagues, neighbors, people I hadn't heard from in years, all chiming in. Some were confused, some were outraged on my behalf, but most understood, their words a balm to my aching soul. One comment, in particular, stuck out, a simple, powerful message that resonated deep within me. "This broke my heart, Margaret, and I've never related to something so deeply. Thank you for showing us we don't have to stay quiet." That was it, the beginning of something new. Not revenge, not spite, but power reclaimed. A quiet, profound triumph. Let them rage in their group chats. Let them spin their own distorted narratives. I wasn't replying. I wasn't explaining. I was finally choosing silence, not as submission, but as control, as a weapon of self-preservation. And the silence this time was truly mine. It started with the drawer. A creaky old thing in the guest room dresser, perpetually half stuck, always needing a little hip bump to coax it open. I wasn't even looking for anything in particular, just clearing out the remnants of a life I'd been too tired, too heartbroken to sort through, to truly process. But somewhere between the yellowing tax returns and a stack of expired coupons, I found it. That red folder again, the same one I thought I'd already emptied, believing its secrets had been fully revealed. But tucked into the sleeve, so thin it might as well have been part of the lining, was a second letter. No envelope this time, just folded once, then again, handwritten. The same slanted scroll, the same familiar name. My ex-husband's signature stared up at me like a ghost from the past, a chilling apparition. Michael. It was dated 3 days before his death, a final confession. Margaret, if you're reading this, I guess the first letter reached you. I don't know if you opened it. I hope you did. I won't waste time apologizing again. I need to tell you something more. Something I couldn't carry with me. Something I should have said a long time ago. Daniel wasn't just someone else's son. He was never supposed to be yours at all. When Emily left him at my door, she didn't want to keep him. She was 18, terrified. She asked me to give him up for adoption. I couldn't. I didn't have the heart. I lied to you. I told you he was ours, that it was a mistake from before we got married. You believed me. You raised him. You loved him like he was flesh of your flesh. But the truth is, he wasn't even that. He was a stranger's child. And you? You made him your world anyway. I didn't move. The words sat on my chest like a crushing boulder, stealing my breath. Not biologically mine, not even accidentally mine. Chosen by a man who had abandoned both of us, who had given me a child, and then walked away as if it were a favor, a burden he had graciously bestowed. My breath caught for the first time in days, a painful gasp. My knees went weak, threatening to buckle. I sat down heavily on the edge of the bed, the flimsy paper still clutched in my trembling hand. 1,000 images flashed in my mind, a chaotic kaleidoscope of memories. We appreciate your generosity. No, this day wouldn't be possible without her. Nothing, a deafening, cruel silence where my name should have been. I bit the inside of my cheek so hard I tasted blood, a metallic tang of pain and fury. My feet ached with an unbearable intensity, but I stubbornly refused to sit down. Then came the part I had been dreading, the groom's speech. Daniel stepped up to the microphone. He looked radiant, his jaw strong and confident, his posture assured, wearing a tailored suit that I had helped pay for, every stitch a reminder of my love. I had seen him take his very first breath in a NICU unit, a fragile, tiny being I had cherished with every fiber of my being. Now he stood there, a grown man, glowing with happiness, a complete stranger. I just want to thank everyone for being here, he said, his voice deeper than I remembered, polished, like he'd rehearsed it endlessly in front of a mirror. I feel so lucky. Emily, you've made me the happiest man alive, and to your family, thank you for welcoming me like your own. I truly feel at home with you all. My throat closed, a tight knot of pain and unshed tears. And to everyone who helped make today happen, thank you. This has been the most incredible day of our lives. My name was never said, not once. I had paid for the venue, the catering, the photographer, the DJ, the linens, the custom neon sign. I even paid for the exquisite dress Emily wore as she stood there, her hand resting delicately on his arm, a picture of marital bliss. And yet, to them, I didn't exist. The servers clapped dutifully, their applause a distant, meaningless sound. I didn't move. The band picked up again, a joyous, insistent melody. The dance floor started to fill with laughing, swaying bodies. Someone brought me a slice of cake on a flimsy plastic plate. I stared at it, a confection of vanilla with raspberry filling, her favorite. I don't like raspberry. Never did. I looked at the thin gold-colored fork they gave me. My hand was steady now, the trembling gone, replaced by a chilling calm. I remembered when Daniel turned 10 and asked for a chocolate cake with sprinkles, his eyes wide with childlike longing. I worked 2 extra shifts, pushing my tired body to its limits, just to buy the one from the fancy bakery he'd pointed to in the window. His eyes had lit up when he saw it, a pure, unadulterated joy. He had hugged me so tight that day, his small arms wrapping around my waist, a memory that now felt like a cruel taunt. That boy was gone. In his place, a man who didn't even remember to save me a chair. I set the untouched cake aside, my appetite gone, replaced by a hollow ache. I waited until the last bite of dessert was served, until people were getting up from their tables, loosening their ties, wiping icing from their lips, until the music hit that perfect, triumphant peak. Then, with a quiet, resolute dignity, I walked out of the kitchen, straight past the bewildered servers, straight past the bustling bar, and out the side door into the cool, still night. The air outside hummed with a profound silence, a quiet that seemed to vibrate in my ears, absorbing all the noise and laughter from within. I took out my phone, my fingers steady. 3 calls, each one a nail in the coffin of my generosity. 1 to the florist, 1 to the band, 1 to the bar manager. Polite, direct, no need for explanations. By the time I walked back into the hotel, the wheels of my quiet vengeance were already turning. Tomorrow's brunch cancelled. The late-night music set pulled. The second bartender and their custom cocktail menu gone, vanished like a bad dream. I had stayed quiet long enough, endured enough. Let them enjoy what's left, the paltry remnants of a celebration I funded. Let them feel the gap, the sudden, inexplicable absence. Let them ask questions, frantic and bewildered. I didn't care if they called me dramatic, petty, ungrateful. They had already erased me from their carefully constructed story. All I did was turn the page, moving on from a chapter that had caused me endless pain. The hotel room smelled faintly of rose lotion and something metallic, maybe the lingering stress of the day, maybe the very air on my skin. I sat cross-legged on the bed, my dress still clinging to me. The comforter remained perfectly made beneath me, untouched since I checked in 2 nights ago. I hadn't cried, not once. But something inside me had turned irrevocably cold. Not frozen. No, frozen things are brittle. They crack under pressure. I was hardening, tempered by the fire of their betrayal, becoming unyielding. The sun hadn't even begun to creep above the horizon yet. I reached for my purse and pulled out my phone. 6 missed calls, 2 desperate voicemails, a dozen frantic messages. "Daniel, where are you? Why is the brunch cancelled? Mum, seriously, this isn't funny." Emily's text read, "I don't understand what's going on. Are you okay? Please respond. This is so childish." I laughed quietly, a puff of air through my nose, a dry, humorless sound. Childish. The word echoed in the silent room, a stinging insult. I opened the banking app again. My fingers moved with the muscle memory of someone who had balanced a checkbook every single Sunday for 3 decades, meticulously, carefully. The charges were still there, stark and undeniable, unauthorized, arrogant. The bride, my new daughter-in-law, had brazenly helped herself to my card for a pre-wedding bar crawl and a lavish spa day with her bridal party. I could see it all in the itemized receipts. Expensive bottles of champagne, indulgent manicures, rejuvenating facial masks, brunch for 8. No one asked me for permission. No one even bothered to tell me. The trust I'd carried in my chest, like an old comforting quilt, warm and familiar, now felt utterly shredded, as if someone had taken scissors to it while I slept, tearing it to pieces. I clicked over to my emails. There were 2 new ones, urgent and demanding. One from the florist. "We're disappointed by the sudden cancellation, but we understand. Per our agreement, no refunds for less than 48 hours' notice." Fine. The second email was from the band's manager. "We were halfway through setting up when the cancellation came in. It's extremely unusual, but your message was clear. We'll leave the deposit untouched." Also fine. I wasn't doing this for a refund, for paltry money. This was for me. For the invisible woman in the kitchen chair, for the mother so cruelly erased from her own son's most important milestone. My stomach growled, a hollow, empty sound. I hadn't eaten since the day before. The very idea of food now made me nauseous, a bitter taste in my mouth. Instead, I got up, pulled the stiff curtains open, and watched the sun bleed into the sky, a painterly canvas of changing light. Orange, then pink, then a pale, ethereal yellow that made everything look utterly unreal, like a dream. And then I remembered something, a forgotten detail surfacing from the depths of my memory. A little red file folder stuffed away in the drawer of my dresser back home. Old paperwork, legal things, letters I had never brought myself to throw out. I felt an undeniable pull towards it, as if it had been whispering to me patiently this whole time. I packed my things slowly, meticulously, then took a long, hot shower, washing off the perfume, the lingering resentment, the grime of a humiliating day. I dried my hair, put on comfortable jeans and a crisp, button-down shirt that still smelled faintly like lavender detergent, a scent of home. I checked out of the hotel without a word, a silent departure. The drive home was quiet, just the rhythmic sound of tires on asphalt and the soft static of the radio playing unfamiliar songs, a soundtrack to my new solitude. It was the kind of drive where your own thoughts begin to emerge, loud and unfiltered, echoing in the confined space. He didn't mention you. They all saw where you were sitting. No one did anything. When I pulled into my driveway, the roses I had planted 2 summers ago were in full, vibrant bloom, a testament to life's persistent beauty. I didn't stop to admire them. I went straight to the bedroom, opened the dresser, pulled the red folder out, and sat heavily on the bed. At the very bottom of the stack, beneath old insurance papers and a few faded photos I hadn't looked at in years, was a letter. The envelope was yellowed and brittle at the corners, postmarked from Arizona, with a date scrawled in my late husband's familiar handwriting, the year he left me. I remembered finding it weeks after he died, a phantom limb of his presence. I hadn't opened it then. I couldn't. It had felt like salt in an open wound, like letting him speak from the grave when I wasn't ready to listen, when the pain was still too raw. But now, with a chilling resolve, I slid my finger under the flap, breaking the fragile seal. The paper was thin, his handwriting slanted and intimately familiar. It started simply, "Margaret, I know you never wanted to hear from me again, but I need to tell you something." I felt my pulse pick up, a frantic beat. My hands trembled slightly, a new, unwelcome tremor. "I've been carrying a secret, and I can't take it to the grave. You deserve the truth." "Daniel, he isn't biologically yours. I found out years ago. Emily was pregnant when we got together. I thought I could pretend he was mine, but he's not. And neither of us ever told you." I stopped reading, the words a hammer blow to my heart. The room spun just for a second, then slowly settled, the world tilting back into place. I read the rest. Apologies, hollow excuses, shallow regrets, words that meant absolutely nothing now. Daniel, my Daniel, the child I had poured my entire being into, was the product of an affair. Another woman's child, left on my doorstep like a test I didn't even know I was taking. And I passed. God help me. I passed with flying colors. Every scraped knee, every comforting bedtime story, every exhausting night shift I took to buy him new sneakers and class photos. I passed. And yet, here I was, discarded, replaced, utterly erased. But now I had a new clarity, a truth so sharp it could cut through years of silence, years of self-deception, and I was done bleeding. I didn't cry. Even as I sat there with that letter trembling in my lap, the weight of it heavier than anything I'd ever held, I didn't shed a single tear. What would be the point? Tears had built Daniel's childhood, watered the seeds of my love. Tears had paid for his shoes, his asthma medication, his first car, each drop a sacrifice. I went to the mirror above the dresser. My reflection startled me, a stranger staring back. There was mascara smudged beneath my eyes, stark against my pale skin. The soft lines of my mouth, once gentle, had hardened into something unfamiliar, a grim, determined set. My hair was flat, one side crushed from the pillow, a messy tangles of grey. I looked like someone who had aged 10 years in one single agonizing night. But then something shifted, a subtle, almost imperceptible change in my eyes. I smoothed my hair back, a gesture of defiance, then walked into the bathroom and washed my face, scrubbing away the last traces of makeup and tears, both shed and unshed. I sat down at the hotel desk, opened my email, and with a steely resolve, drafted 3 messages. One to the florist. "Please cancel Sunday delivery. The payment balance is withheld. Thank you." One to the band. "Due to changes in the event schedule, we will not require the second performance. Please consider the matter closed." One to the bar vendor. "We're scaling back post-reception services. Please cancel the second shift. Do not process the remaining balance." All were polite, all professional, but utterly, irrevocably final. It was almost dawn when I hit send, the screen's glow illuminating my determined face. And when the sky outside slowly turned from black to a bruised, melancholic blue, I closed my tablet, sat on the bed, listened to the quiet, almost mournful hum of the air conditioning, and for the first time in months, I felt like myself again, Not whole, not happy, but undeniably, finally myself. I wasn't angry, not yet. But I was done. Done being convenient. Done being the endless wallet. Done being the afterthought, the invisible presence. Let them figure it out. Let them scramble. Let them remember the exact moment the music abruptly cut off, the bar inexplicably stopped pouring, the brunch flowers never arrived, and wonder, with dawning panic, why. And maybe, just maybe, in their bewildered chaos, they'd remember who made that lavish wedding possible in the first place. The woman in the kitchen, the one they didn't want in their perfectly curated photos, the one they had so easily, so cruelly, erased. The music pulsed through the wall like a distant, mocking heartbeat. I sat there in that wretched folding chair, staring at a plate of cold hors d'oeuvres and a Diet Coke from the catering cooler, and tried desperately not to listen, but I couldn't help it. Every joyful laugh, every triumphant cheer, every clinking glass from the reception hall, it all made its way back through the swinging door, a cruel, relentless reminder of where I wasn't, of what I was missing. I could hear someone making a toast, a booming male voice, probably her father, or maybe Daniel's best man. I leaned back slightly, just enough to catch a fleeting glimpse through the narrow crack of the door. There they were, lined up proudly in front of that ridiculous, over-the-top floral arch I had paid dearly for. Gold chairs gleamed, floating candles flickered, and a custom neon sign blazed, proclaiming, "The future is forever," in loopy, whimsical cursive. I recognized the voices, even when I couldn't fully see the faces. Emily's mother, Susan, with her signature, sickeningly fake sympathy tone, was speaking. "Oh my God, Daniel, you are just the sweetest man alive. Emily is so lucky." Then came the gales of laughter. Cheers. I froze, a cold dread seizing me. There, sitting regally at the head table, was Susan, draped in navy chiffon, dripping in pearls as if she were born into old money, which she absolutely wasn't. She had met me only 3 times before the wedding, 3 brief, superficial encounters. She never once asked about my life, never thanked me for the endless payments, never even offered to contribute a single penny. Next to her, Emily's father held court like a suburban king, his big, booming laugh echoing through the hall. The same man who had told me at the rehearsal dinner, with a patronizing pat on my shoulder, "We really admire your perseverance, Margaret. Raising Daniel on your own and all must have been hard." Perseverance. As if I'd merely hiked a mountain, not worked years in scrubs, sacrificing my own dreams, just so my kid could have a life without hand-me-downs, without ever feeling less than. And there was Daniel, my Daniel, smiling like a stranger, sitting comfortably between her parents, as if he had always belonged to them, as if he were their son, not mine. I searched desperately for my own family, a comforting, familiar face. My sister Carol sat 2 rows back, next to our cousin Diane. Neither of them looked towards the kitchen. No one did. I wasn't part of the show. I was a problem that had been conveniently solved by a folding chair in the back and a door that swung shut on my face. Someone brushed past me, a young waiter, a girl probably in college, her face flushed from the heat and effort. She glanced at my untouched plate and offered a small, awkward, guilty smile. "Do you want, a refill or anything?" I shook my head, the gesture heavy with unspoken pain. "I'm fine," I lied, my voice thin. But I wasn't. God, I wasn't. Every inch of me ached, my feet throbbing, my shoulders tense, my jaw clenched so tight it pulsed behind my eyes. My heart sat heavy in my chest, a leaden lump of something rotten that refused to move, refusing to let me breathe easily. I stared down at the plate again. 3 olives, a meager slice of brie, a sad little triangle of toast. I hadn't eaten since breakfast, but I couldn't bring myself to put anything in my mouth. My stomach was a clenched fist, my throat a narrow, constricted pipe. I thought of the seating chart, a detail I had innocently inquired about weeks ago. I'd asked Emily gently, "Have you figured out where I'll be sitting?" She had smiled then, a tight, unnervingly bright smile. "We're still finalizing everything. Don't worry, Margaret, you'll be included." I should have known. I did know, somewhere deep down, in the pit of my gut, that I was being managed, manipulated, moved around like a prop, invited for the checkbook, tolerated for the optics, but never truly, genuinely wanted. The worst part, the most agonizing part, was that I said yes to everything. I let them chip away at my role, one tiny, insidious concession at a time. No speech from me, because they said it would feel awkward. No mother-son dance because they claimed it would be too emotional. No photos before the ceremony, no mention in the program, just a pathetic seat in the kitchen. I heard Daniel laughing again, that deep, rumbling laugh he used to have as a kid, back when I'd chase him through the sprinkler in our backyard, his joy infectious. The same laugh I hadn't heard directed at me in years. I felt something rise in my chest, a powerful surge. Not grief, not disappointment. Rage. Quiet, controlled, devastating rage. I stood up, my muscles stiff, and walked towards the swinging door, my hand trembling as I placed it on the edge. I pushed just slightly, just enough to peek through again, and then, our eyes met, Emily's and mine. She saw me. She knew exactly where I was, knew what she had done, and she smiled. Not apologetically, not nervously, but calmly, confidently, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, as if I was exactly where I belonged. She turned back towards her bridesmaids, tossed her head back, and laughed, a bright, cruel sound. That was when I knew. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't some unfortunate oversight. This was deliberate. They had planned it, chosen it, with a cold, calculated cruelty. She didn't want me there. And Daniel, my son, had let her. They both had. And just like that, something inside me shifted irrevocably. Not broken. No, not this time. Repositioned. My place in their lives had changed, had been forcibly redefined, and I was done pretending I didn't see it. Let them have their spotlight. Let them drink their expensive champagne, bought with my generosity. They thought I was invisible, easily discarded. They had no idea what I could take away. The toast started while I was still standing by the kitchen door, a silent, seething observer. Someone had dimmed the lights in the reception hall, casting a soft, ethereal glow. I could see the shimmer of string lights above and the faint sparkle of gold from the chargers on each table. The microphone squealed once, a jarring sound, and then her father's voice boomed through the room like a game show host, sickeningly jovial. "To our daughter Emily and her perfect new husband Daniel." Cheers erupted, a deafening wave of celebration. I took a step back, retreating further into the shadows. The kitchen behind me was a maelstrom of chaos. Metal trays clanging, voices rising in heated arguments, a frantic server complaining about Table 12's gluten-free plate. I moved to the side, leaning heavily against the cold plaster wall. The smell of garlic and hot oil clung to the air, an unwelcome embrace. From the other side of the swinging door, her father continued his saccharine speech. When Emily was little, she told us she wanted a fairy tale, a prince, a castle, and a happy ending. "Well, sweetheart, today you got it." More thunderous applause. My breath caught in my throat. He was never there when Daniel was little, never saw me mop vomit off the bathroom floor at 3 a.m., exhausted and alone. Never watched me painstakingly sew buttons back onto his school uniform, my fingers aching. Never drove miles on icy roads just to take him to a chess tournament, sacrificing my own warmth for his ambition. But today, they were rewriting the story, erasing my contributions, and I had been edited out, an inconvenient detail. I looked down at my hands again. My fingers were blotchy, the skin thin and fragile, trembling slightly. The cold air vent above made my arms prickle, a chilling reminder of my isolation. Then came Emily's mother's turn. Her voice was syrupy sweet, sickeningly over-rehearsed, like a performance. We're so grateful to be joined today by so many people who love Emily and Daniel, and to welcome Daniel into our family. He's like a second son to us already. Another round of enthusiastic cheers. Like a second son, not a single word about me, not a single word about the woman who had raised him, who had sacrificed everything. No, thank you for everything, Margaret. No. The first time I rocked Daniel to sleep, his tiny fists curled tightly against my shoulder, a precious weight. His first word, truck, spoken with an adorable lisp. The terrifying fever that scared me so badly, I drove to the emergency room barefoot in the dead of winter. The science fair project he stayed up crying over when his volcano stubbornly wouldn't erupt, his small face contorted in frustration. His first real heartbreak, a teenage tragedy. His joyous laugh when he found out he'd gotten into college, a moment of pure, unadulterated pride. Every single moment I thought was ours, intrinsically linked to a shared past. I had built my entire life around this boy, sacrificed my own identity. I had shaped my very being around being his mother, and now I had to accept something no woman should ever have to. He never truly saw me that way. He loved what I gave, the endless stream of material things and unwavering support. Not who I was, not really. If he had truly loved and seen me, he never would have let her put me in that kitchen, hidden away like a shameful secret. He never would have stayed silent, a complicit observer to my humiliation. He never would have let them erase me from the narrative of his life. I placed the letter on the bed, smoothing it out with my trembling palm, trying to flatten the creases of deceit. It didn't feel like a fresh betrayal anymore. It felt like an unexpected, liberating freedom. For 62 agonizing years, I had lived a version of myself that existed only in service to others. Wife, mother, provider, ghost. But now, with that stark truth staring up at me in ink faded with age, I saw something new, something profoundly important. I had a power I didn't even realize existed because I had loved someone completely, someone who never truly belonged to me. And I never let that stop me, because I chose to stay when others ran, because I made a family, a true, loving family, even when it wasn't written in blood. And I could choose again, starting now, starting today. I left the letter open on the kitchen table. Didn't hide it. Didn't lock it away in a secret drawer. Just let it sit there, plain and visible, like a truth I no longer needed to shield from myself, from the world. I moved through the house like I was seeing it for the very first time, each detail suddenly imbued with a new, stark meaning. The bland beige walls, the faded photos of Daniel's high school graduation, now mere relics. The dent in the doorframe from when he crashed his bike trying to ride inside, a memory I used to smile at. Now I just stared at it, a symbol of all my misguided sacrifices. That house, my home, was a museum of sacrifices. Of all the ways I'd erased myself, diminished my own needs, to keep him whole, to make his world perfect. The faded armchair I had nursed him in, countless hours spent comforting a sick child. The sewing kit I used to meticulously hem his pants, ensuring he looked presentable. The pantry still full of his favorite cereal, honey bunches of oats. Even though I'd stopped liking it years ago, it hit me all at once, a sudden, overwhelming realization. I didn't know what my favorite cereal was anymore. I didn't know the last book I'd read that wasn't a parenting guide or something from the hospital's required reading list. I didn't remember the last time I spent money on something just for me. I had lived so long being his mother, his constant, unwavering support. I'd utterly forgotten how to be a woman, a person in my own right. I poured myself a glass of water and sat on the couch, the worn fabric a familiar comfort. The silence in the house had changed. It didn't feel lonely, oppressive. It felt honest, a clean slate. My phone buzzed on the side table. Daniel again. A long message this time. a different, more subdued tone. "I don't know what happened. I've been thinking about everything. Emily said she didn't mean to hurt you. I'm sorry if you felt excluded. If I felt. Not because you excluded me, not because you deliberately left me behind. If I felt, it was still about his perception, his comfort, his desperate attempt to distance himself from blame." I didn't respond. Instead, I picked up the remote and turned on the TV. The gentle hum of a cooking show filled the room, calm, steady, a welcome distraction. My eyes drifted to the letter again. He wasn't mine, not biologically, not legally, but I had been his mother, wholly and completely, until he made it undeniably clear that I was no longer part of the family he was so eagerly building. The ache inside me wasn't for him anymore. It was for the version of myself I had abandoned, so willingly, to raise someone who never once turned around to ask, with genuine concern, "Are you okay, Mom?" All those years, all those birthdays I made so incredibly special, pouring my heart into every detail. All those Christmas mornings I stayed up past midnight, meticulously wrapping dollar store gifts in perfect, elaborate bows. All those, "You go sit, I'll do the dishes," kind of days I never had, because no one ever offered, no one ever considered my needs. I had been his background music, his invisible safety net, his reliable, ever-present silence. But no more. That evening, with a quiet, steely resolve, I took every single framed photo of us off the wall, not out of anger, not out of spite, but because it was time to stop living in a shrine to a version of motherhood that had demanded I disappear, that had utterly consumed me. I boxed them gently, wrapping the precious glass in old towels, each movement a tender farewell. I labeled the box simply, "Memories, not obligations." I cooked dinner just for me, a recipe I saw once on a travel show that had always intrigued me. Lemon butter pasta with roasted cherry tomatoes and garlic. No chicken nuggets, no bland side of mac and cheese, just exactly what I wanted, what I craved. I lit a single candle while I ate, its soft glow illuminating the quiet room. I played soft jazz, a soothing melody. I set the table for one. It was quiet, profoundly quiet, but it wasn't empty. It was the resonant sound of reclaiming something I hadn't even realized I'd utterly lost, myself. The invitation list started with silence. No glitter pens, no gold foil, no elaborate calligraphy, just a plain, lined yellow notepad and the soft scratch of my pen across its surface. I wrote the names one by one, not people I had to invite, out of obligation or familial duty. These were people I wanted to. Claire, my old friend from the ER, who used to sneak hot coffee into my locker when I worked grueling doubles, a small act of kindness. Mr. Henderson, my kind next-door neighbor who always snowblowed my driveway before I could even get out there, a thoughtful gesture that always warmed my heart. Dina, from the independent bookstore I visit every Sunday, who always asks about my week and actually, truly listens, her eyes full of genuine interest. Nurse Janet, who once stayed late on her own birthday to help me cover a difficult shift, a selfless act of camaraderie. No one shared my blood, not a single one, but every single one of them had made me feel seen, truly seen, in a way my own son never had. And that, I realized, was the new theme, the new focus of my life. People who saw me. It wasn't a wedding. It wasn't a holiday. Just a simple, heartfelt dinner at my house, with my food, at my table. No flimsy folding chairs, no humiliating back kitchens. I spent the next few days getting everything ready. Not because I had to impress anyone, not out of obligation, but because I wanted to. For the first time in years, I wasn't preparing something for someone else's story, for someone else's fleeting happiness. This wasn't about Daniel. It wasn't about redemption, about proving anything to those who had wronged me. It was about making space for joy, for pure, unadulterated joy, for me. I went to the market and picked out the ingredients myself, savoring each choice. Fresh basil, fragrant garlic, vibrant heirloom tomatoes. Not a single frozen appetizer tray in sight. I even bought a new tablecloth, a beautiful blue with cheerful sunflowers. It reminded me of something I would have liked, something that would have brought me joy when I was 20, before all the shoulds started stacking up like heavy bricks around my life, suffocating my spirit. On the morning of the dinner, I woke up early and played music while I cooked, the melodies filling my home with warmth. Van Morrison, Stevie Nicks, Norah Jones. My house smelled like garlic and olive oil and lemon zest, like warmth, like effort, like home, a haven I had created for myself. The first guest arrived just before 6, Claire carrying a bottle of red wine and a huge, genuine smile. "You look amazing, Maggie," she exclaimed. And I did. My hair was soft, streaked with silver at the temples, but loose and confident, framing a face that finally felt at peace. I wore a linen blouse that made my skin feel cool and comfortable. No Spanx, no mascara tears waiting to happen. Just me, authentic and unburdened. They trickled in after that, 6 cherished guests. Laughter at the door, rich and unrestrained. Hugs that lasted longer than they needed to, filled with genuine affection. Wine was poured without anyone asking permission, a simple act of shared camaraderie. We ate at the table I once used for folding laundry and helping Daniel with his math homework, a table that had witnessed countless acts of my silent service. Now it was full of passing plates, clinking forks, napkins being dabbed to mouths mid-laughter. I laughed too, really laughed, a deep, joyful sound that resonated from my soul. Someone brought up bad first dates, eliciting groans of shared experience. Someone else admitted to secretly stealing a pen from the bank every week, purely out of spite, a confession met with understanding chuckles. And somewhere between dessert and seconds, as the conversation flowed freely, it hit me, a profound realization. This was family, not assigned by blood, by obligation, but chosen, intentionally, authentically, by hearts that truly saw and valued mine. I didn't feel forgotten. I didn't feel managed. I didn't feel small, diminished. I felt present, vibrantly alive. Towards the end of the evening, as we sat under the string lights I'd painstakingly strung across the back porch, Claire raised a glass, her eyes sparkling. "To Margaret," she said, her voice filled with admiration, "for being the kind of woman who reminds us that it's never too late to take your seat at the head of your own table." Everyone clinked glasses, a chorus of agreement. I laughed softly, a genuine, heartfelt laugh, and I meant every single word when I raised my own glass and said simply, "To finally being seen." The knock came just after noon the next day. Not loud, not urgent, but steady, persistent, like he knew I was home and wasn't going to leave until I opened the door. I stood in the hallway barefoot, my heart a complex mix of emotions, watching his familiar silhouette through the frosted glass. Daniel. It had been a week since the wedding, 7 agonizing days of silence from me, 7 days of unraveling for him, a slow, painful descent into chaos. I opened the door slowly, deliberately. He looked the same, superficially, but not really. The expensive suit was gone, replaced by a wrinkled t-shirt. So was the radiant glow. Dark circles underlined his eyes, a testament to sleepless nights. His mouth tightened when he saw me, like he'd rehearsed 10 different ways to start this conversation and had suddenly forgotten them all. "Hi, Mom." I didn't say it back. I simply stepped aside, let him in, a silent invitation. He hesitated, then walked past me, his steps heavy. The house was clean, quiet, a stark contrast to the previous night's warmth. Sunlight streamed across the living room floor, illuminating the empty spaces on the mantel. The photos were gone. Every last one of him. He noticed, his eyes flicked to the blank spots, a dawning realization in their depths. "Where are the pictures?" I ignored the question, letting it hang in the air, unanswered. "Sit down," I said, my voice calm, flat, devoid of emotion. He obeyed, sinking heavily into the armchair across from me, a picture of defeat. For a long, awkward moment, neither of us spoke, the silence thick with unspoken words and festering resentments. Finally, he sighed, ran a weary hand through his hair. "I didn't come here to fight." I nodded, a small, cold acknowledgement. "Good." He shook his head, his confusion palpable. "I don't understand what happened. 1 minute everything was fine, and the next you're cancelling things, posting checks on Facebook." That stung, a fresh wound. He didn't ask how I felt. He didn't say, "I'm sorry." He wanted an explanation, a justification for my actions, not an understanding of his own. I stood, walked to the hallway closet, and pulled out a box, a sturdy cardboard container. I set it down gently on the coffee table between us, a physical manifestation of all that had transpired. "What's this?" he asked, his voice laced with apprehension. "Receipts," I said, my voice unwavering. "Every single one of them from the last 12 months. Venue deposits, dress fittings, caterer down payments. I even covered the extra dance floor you wanted. Remember that?" His eyes scanned the papers, not daring to touch them, each receipt a testament to my boundless generosity and his casual acceptance. Then I pulled out the next item, the letter, his father's unmistakable handwriting. I didn't speak while he read, watching his face, a silent observer of his unraveling. At first, confusion, then recognition, then the slow, creeping shade of disbelief, a dawning horror. He looked up, his voice cracked, fragile. "You knew?" "I do now," I said, my voice as steady as stone. He swallowed hard, his throat dry. "So, you're angry because I'm not. I'm not angry because you're not my biological son," I said, cutting him off, my voice sharp, precise. "I'm angry because I raised you, Daniel. I gave you everything I had. And when the moment came for you to honor me, to stand up and say, 'This woman made me,' you sat down." He looked down, silent, defeated. "You let them push me into the kitchen," I continued, my voice unwavering, devoid of any tremor. "You watched them humiliate me, and you said nothing. That's what broke me. Not your DNA, not the money." He finally spoke, barely above a whisper, his voice hollow. "I didn't think it would matter. Emily said. She said it would be better for the pictures, for the look. I didn't think you'd be hurt." I laughed, a cold, brief, mirthless sound. "You didn't think. Exactly." I stood, walked over to the mantel, and held up one of the empty frames, its emptiness a stark accusation. "This used to hold a photo of your kindergarten graduation. You had a missing tooth and marker on your shirt. You ran off the stage straight into my arms. I placed it face down, a final act of letting go. I'm done holding on to versions of you that no longer exist." He flinched like I'd physically hit him. "Mom, no." "No," I said firmly, my voice cutting through his protest. "I'm not your backdrop anymore. I'm not your bank. I'm not your afterthought." He looked at the floor, his jaw clenched, his shoulders slumped in defeat. He nodded slowly. "I'm sorry," he whispered, the words small, insufficient. "Too little, too late." I picked up the box, the tangible evidence of my sacrifices, closed the lid and handed it to him. "These are yours now, take them. Every receipt, every record, every reminder of what you chose to overlook." He hesitated, then took the box, his hands trembling slightly, and I walked him to the door. He paused at the threshold, looking back at me, his eyes searching desperately for a crack, a softness, a sign that the door might open again later, that our fractured relationship might somehow be mended. But it wouldn't. "You always said I was your whole world," he said quietly, his voice filled with a desperate longing. "You were," I replied, my voice gentle but firm. And now I'm finally mine. Then I closed the door, a definitive, echoing click that sealed the end of a painful chapter. The house was warm with laughter, real laughter, the kind that fills your chest and makes your eyes crinkle without you even noticing. The kind that echoes through the walls and reminds you that you're truly, vibrantly alive. The inviting smell of garlic and rosemary danced through the air, a fragrant embrace. The table was set with care, a beautiful blue and sunflower yellow cloth, mismatched plates that told a story of eclectic joy, cloth napkins folded into whimsical little fans. I had placed a single candle in the center, not to impress anyone, just because I liked the way the flickering flame made the silverware shine, casting a warm glow. My guests were gathered in the living room, sipping wine, sharing stories, their voices a symphony of genuine connection. Mr. Henderson was in the corner, his eyes twinkling, telling a hilarious story about how he once locked himself out of his house in his underwear, his booming laughter filling the room. Everyone was howling, tears streaming down Claire's face from laughing so hard. And me? I was standing in the kitchen barefoot, holding a glass of wine, smiling, a genuine, unburdened smile. Not waiting to be called in, not hidden behind a door, not forgotten. I was the hostess. I was present. I was seen. I plated the last dish, roasted vegetables with thyme and sea salt, a dish prepared with love and care, and brought it out to the dining room. As I set it on the table, someone clapped. "Chef Margaret strikes again," Claire said with a triumphant grin. We sat, passed the bowls, poured more wine, the evening flowing with ease and warmth. Somewhere between the second helping and the last bite of cornbread, Claire raised her glass again, her eyes shining with affection. "I think we should toast," she said. Everyone nodded, eager to join. "To what?" Dina asked, her voice soft. Claire turned to me, her gaze steady and full of admiration. "To choosing yourself," she said, her voice clear and strong. "And to knowing when to stop giving to people who only know how to take." Everyone raised their glass, a collective act of solidarity. And I finally, fully raised mine too, no hesitation, no fear. I stood up, my hands didn't shake, my voice didn't tremble. I looked at every face around that table, people who weren't bound to me by obligation or blood, but by choice, by love, by respect. And I said, my voice resonating with a quiet power, to the mothers who stayed quiet for too long, to the women who gave everything and were told it still wasn't enough, to the ones who were asked to sit in the kitchen after building the damn house. This is for us. May we never sit down again, unless it's at the head of our own table. Glasses clinked, someone cheered, a joyous affirmation, and I sat down. Not in the back, not out of sight, not in exile, but firmly in my chair, my place, at the head of my table. Daniel never called again. I didn't need him to. The people who truly mattered were already here, surrounding me with their warmth and unwavering support. The next morning, I woke up to the sweet symphony of birdsong and golden light pouring through my window. No regrets, no tightness in my chest, just a profound, pervasive peace. I made coffee, its comforting aroma filling my home, and sat on the porch, my robe fluttering gently in the morning breeze. I looked out at my garden, roses blooming wild and bright, a testament to resilience. I wasn't someone's backdrop anymore. I was the main character in my own life story, finally taking center stage. And finally, that was enough. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters,